Hello everybody and welcome to Lawrie Goes Loco. Today we're here at the Bredgar and Wormshill Railway looking at a very special little narrow gauge loco, of which there's only two in the UK. This is the most modern locomotive I have ever driven, having been built in 1991. This is a Schoma CHL-30G, which means something that I don't quite understand. I think CHL is the German way of what this is, like a small industrial, don't really know. And it is number 5239. It's a little 040 that weighs about 4 tonnes and it's got hydraulic drive. So that's the basic stuff. And frankly, it looks very industrial, doesn't it? It's very boxy, very flat. It's quite strange looking, but it's got kind of like a purposefulness about it. It looks like it's ready just to go to work. And frankly, I rather like it. She was built in Diepholz, I think. The correct spelling of that's up on the screen now. I'm sorry, German viewers, if I pronounce that terribly wrong. We know by now that I cannot do other languages at all. Anyway, built there in Germany in 1991, and Schoma is still a company going where you can order locomotives from today. So, being so modern, one would think that it doesn't have much history because it hasn't had much time to acquire any history. Ah, you're quite wrong. It's got quite a fascinating little bit of history. It was delivered brand new to Taylor Woodrowes, who were a concrete fabricator, and they were making sections for the Channel Tunnel. So this is one of the engines that was used for not the actual construction of the Channel Tunnel, because that was a different gauge entirely. This was used for moving the bits of the tunnel which were fabricated before they became the tunnel around, which is a bit of a complex kind of bit, which is why it's this colour white. Now, the colour it's in at the moment with the stripe is the standard Schroeder colour. If you don't ask for anything else, this is what you get. But originally, this was just this white, because that is standard concrete / tunnel making industrial colour. And the main reason it's white is when it gets dirty, and you can see that it's dirty, and it's properly dirty and it's no longer white, that means it's time for a service. And that is generally how these things work. When it's no longer white, time to give it a service, which is just bonkers, to be honest. Who runs like that? But generally that's why it's that colour, which is, yeah. So upon the completion of the Channel Tunnel, the work for this basically dried up. It wasn't needed anymore. So it changed hands and was sold a couple of times, of which its new owners didn't actually do anything with it. It didn't turn a wheel in service again until 2000, when it was bought by Tunnel Steel. And it was based out of the famous Alan Keith's yard. And they kind of did some contracts together, and it did various, well, jobs, going out on hire and contracting jobs. One of which makes it, I think, quite unique, because this worked on a railway on a boat. Yes, I'll repeat that for you. This worked on a railway that was built on a ship. Why, I hear you ask? Well, it worked out on a ship that was laying deep sea cable, and its basic job was to move the cable up and down the ship. And I don't know any other examples of locomotives that have worked on ships. That's quite a... Can you imagine being on that? They've got a ship rolling back and forth and this thing moving. That must have been a surreal thing. It was during this time that the locomotive had its biggest service to date. It got repainted, it had some wiring bits sorted, and it had a service. And that's basically about it. It hasn't had an awful lot of work. Now, after about 6 years of ownership, the current owner had been looking for a locomotive, and Channel Steel thought that they were ready to dispose of it. And so the current owner managed to acquire it, and it moved to Amberley, where it stayed there for 10 years, being one of their main motive power sources and working their passenger trains. And then it came here, where it's been ever since. So with there only being 2 of these in the UK, it's quite unusual, but this one itself is more unusual than the standard design. These don't normally have doors. And if they do have doors, and that's an uncommon option, then the cab is fully enclosed, and it has doors, and they're sliding doors, which are pretty cool. So it's part of the custom order that this engine has got this cab, which you might notice is missing any glass. And that's because it isn't actually a cab as such. This is a protection device. This is to stop falling objects from hitting your driver or crew. So it never had any glass or any doors or anything. It is just simply head protection from fally stuff. That's a change from the normal design, because normally these things were cabless. In fact, you can see the weld marks here and here where the extra cab was, well, tacked on top. So it's quite weird, because you look at it straight away and think, oh no, there should be glass there, but no, there shouldn't be. This is more or less how it should be. The only thing that's really changed is there used to be a flashing light on top of it when it was moving around the industrial places. And then this gets even more unusual in the fact that all of these bolts around here can come out, and then you just lift the whole body off for servicing. There's a panel on the roof which is meant to be there for servicing and inspecting the top half of the engine, but it's a lot easier just to go around and get a couple of strong lads and pick the body off, which makes working on the engine so much easier because there's nothing in the way. And that's an ingenious bit of design. That's cool, isn't it? How do we get to everything? Well, we'll just take the body off, then you can get to everything easily. Well done, Germany. You did that one well. Yeah, that's clever. After delivery, the locomotive was named Jenny. We don't know why, we don't know who Jenny was, but Jenny was its name. And when the owner got it, it had a sticker of the name stuck over this area, which was an invert of the colours. And going, oh, silly, it's got a sticker on it, the owner pulled it off, revealing his name had been previously painted on, so we don't really know why the sticker was there because it did exactly the same job as the painted name. But Jenny is its name. So, behold the beating heart. These catchy things on the door are actually quite strong, they're quite hard to overcome. Now in here we have a Deutsch 3-cylinder diesel, which has a capacity of 3.8 litres. Each cylinder is over a litre, and it generates 40 horsepower, so it's not quite as powerful as my own one, despite being a fraction of the size of the engine that's in my 48. Frankly, this is extremely tidy. The other big thing to notice about this is an air-cooled engine. There's no water or anything needed for this, which really ups the simplicity of it. It makes it a lot simpler to operate. The other cool things in here are the exhaust comes down here off the headers, follows it here, and then disappears down a downward pointing exhaust pipe. And just here, we have a little plate on top of the silencer. The owner isn't entirely sure what this is meant to do, but it's very good at heating up pasties, which I think is a very important part of the design. The other very interesting thing about everything in here is it's all sprung, everything's floating, nothing's actually hard bolted on. So we've got some washers here that hold the main engine mounts, and beneath it we have the transmission and the hydraulic motor. And that's all sprung as well, that's all floating, which all goes towards making this engine apparently pretty silent in operation. And the other amazing thing about it is the condition of it. It's so amazingly clean in here. The owner has spent a lot of time and effort to keep it in this condition. The other thing that's kind of worth noticing here is the paint has got blackened and a little bit burnt along here, showing just how hot the air-cooled engine does get, which is, well, apparently quite, and you've got a bit of soot from the inside. It does get a little bit warm in there. So the drive from this comes from the hydraulic motor down a shaft to the rear axle, which is a worm drive, then through another drive shaft coming to the front axle on another worm gear. So the problem with this is if anything goes catastrophically wrong, you can't push a locomotive with worm drive. Apart from that, it's awesome. So in the cab, the controls are, well, somewhat Spartan and seem to be lacking in actual controls. So we have our little control board down here where we have the key and ignition. We've got a couple of warning lights, and what's really cool about this is we've got headlights, front and rear, and then we can put them onto high beam. So when you're doing shunting in the dark, you don't dazzle the poor person who's trying to couple them up. And that's really cool. So down here we have the engine counter, and this thing is really cool because it's only done 8,186 hours, which is nothing. It's basically brand new. Then next door we have the battery voltage meter, a temperature gauge for the engine, and the oil pressure. Now the interesting thing here on the temperature gauge is green goes an awfully long way before we get into danger territory. We also have a horn and another horn. And inside this tiny panel here is where all the fuses are. So there's not that many electronics on it at all, to be honest. The other thing is, The buzzer for horn is also the same noise for if the fan belt snaps. And the reason we have that is because if the fan belt snaps, we lose the air cooling. And on an air-cooled engine, that's bad. So if you hear the buzzer going off, it's engine off and stop time to avoid catastrophic damage. Then we have the engine turn off here. This is just a pull out on most diesels. Handbrake here. Standing lever here, which is just a pull out to use. Also in the cab, we've got the nice builder's plate that tells us everything about the engine. So I can tell you that it's 4 tons, and I can tell you its engine, I can tell you where it was built, and, well, actually everything I know about this engine came off this plate. Over here we have the throttle, which is fine. Up there we have the air gauge. This is through pipe so it can work air brake stock. Can't destroy the air, but it can work them and you can see how much air you've got. Which leaves the steering wheel. Yes, this locomotive has a steering wheel. Behind it we have a little locking flap because at the moment we're in mid-gear. And by turning it in this way direction, we'll go that way. And the further we turn it, the faster we'll go. And turning it back this way will slow us back down and acts as the brake until we reach the middle position. And I bet you've guessed this next bit, but if we turn it this way, we go that way. Now, I've never driven anything that has this as a control method. It's strange. Apparently, it's really easy, but a steering wheel on a train is strange. It's very strange. Apparently, this is how most shunting locomotives work on the continent. I have absolutely no idea. But it's yes, very strange. Then the footplate on this is very low, and we have a seat quite high up to kind of counter that. From when I'm standing on it, you're kind of like the same height whether you're sitting on the seat or you're standing up. There's not much difference on the two of them. But that's about it. It's remarkably simple. I don't think I've ever come across an industrial engine that has so few controls available to you. So I guess it's time to find out exactly how all of these controls actually work, and let's prep it and get it fired up. Prepping this is actually the most simple locomotive I have ever come across. Firstly, we open up the sides here, we check the dipstick, and we make sure there is indeed oil on it. Well, there's oil on that, so that was very easy. Next, we come over here and we check the diesel tank, and we check to make sure there is diesel in it by checking the gauge, and we have established there is indeed diesel in it. Also very easy. Then we come round to the front and we open up this little thing here and we check to make sure the belts have got some tension on them and they're not about to just fall apart on us. As part of regular servicing, we've also got access to the air filters here, but that's not something we have to do every time. But if we ever want to get to them, they're just there. And then finally, after we shut that back up, we wander around to the far side and we open up this one and we check to make sure there's hydraulic oil. That is it. We don't have to do anything else. If the fluids are low in any of these, then we top them up. But that's it. The bearings are all on grease and they're done occasionally when they need doing, depending on how much use the loco's had. That's all there is. So on top here, we've got a sander for here. Diesel goes in here. And to avoid any confusion, to make sure that nobody accidentally puts diesel in the hydraulic oil, there's a bar across this one so you can't fill it up. But you undo this and that's how you get to the hydraulic oil for topping that up. Simple. It's so simple you couldn't actually get it wrong, even if you tried to. So with all the prep done in record time, all that remains is to board the engine, like so. Reach down for the key, twist, push and turn. Fired up. Give it some revs. Handbrake off. Catch up. And off we go. Let's see how this thing works. Starting off, we give it some throttle and go past that part where everything vibrates. Going past that vibrating stage is good. This is where the engine's happy. Before that, at the vibrating stage, not so happy. Next, handbrake off, little flappy thing up, and gently bring the steering wheel around. Also, two-tone horn, which I like. And then, oh wow, that's so amazingly smooth. That's amazing. I mean, it's hydraulic drive, so it's going to be smooth, but the way you can so gently put the power down with this wheel, that's amazing. And it keeps on turning, and it keeps on turning, as we now slow down a bit as we're heading down the line. It's the weirdest sensation sitting here with a literal steering wheel in my hands on a railway. Ah, it's two-tone, but not. So let's see, wheel, okay, that is full power at full speed, and it is not fast. That's the wheel has gone all the way up against the stop. And you can just hear the hydraulic drive starting to work a little bit. I mean, I've only got one brake van behind me, and that's really not taxing this little thing at all. This is a lovely thing to go on a trundle. The railway here at Bredgar is so pretty as well. Travelling through the wooded section here, it's amazing. This is great. There's no noise of anything. You've got the engine trundling away in the background, but there's no transmission noise. There's a very, very slight bit of the hydraulic drive, but there's no squealing, no hydraulic crunching, no anything else. It's rather different to anything else I've driven on the narrow gauge because it is so very quiet. It's also quite strange having the lack of windows or anything. Oh wow! Oh yeah. You can hear the hydraulics cutting in a little bit here as we're starting to go downhill just to regulate our speed. That's very cool. That's very nice. And then as we come round here, we'll start to go back uphill again. So keeping the drive in maximum, we can now just give it a bit more throttle to increase us. Oh! Well, the power is just instantaneous. A little knock of the throttle and that's very impressive, I like that. Oh, we also got a bit of squeal coming round this corner. The track here at Bredgar is amazingly good as well. This thing's got a bit of a bounce to it, but it's quite a nice undulating motion. It's not bad, it's not a rough thing, it's just very pleasant. And especially this nice comfortable seat here. This driving position is lovely, the seat's comfortable, we go up and down nice and gently. It's really, really nice. It's just superb. That makes me so happy. So we'll throttle down a little bit here. This is great. This is absolutely great. And then stopping it. Well, stopping it's actually a very similar process. Just turn the wheel the other way. Apparently it stops a lot quicker than it starts. So, oh yeah. Oh, that's strange. This is so unbelievably controllable with this wheel. Whoops. He says. That's brilliant. Oh wow, I like that. Right, so let's let's do a bit more because I want to have another go in this. With the controls on this, it would be entirely possible to fist bump a mouse. It is so very easily controllable. I don't want to drive this long distance. This doesn't go very fast at all. This might even be slower than my own Ruston 48. It's not a quick engine at all. But I feel like I want to go shunting with it. I want to spend a day in a yard, banging wagons together and just turning this so nice and gently and just bringing it down to a stop to go, oh yeah, we're going to buffer up to these wagons. It's so easy. It feels so silky smooth, and silky smooth isn't normally an experience you get on the narrow gauge. Normally everything's a bit more rough and ready and bouncy, whereas this is it's fantastic. It's just so controllable. It's wonderful. Oh, two-tone. That amuses me far more than it should. I do like the horn on it. Everything down there, all my gauges work, which is quite spectacular. I have everything down there working. It's great. I really enjoy this sitting position too. It's strange. I can't quite feel if I'm on a ship or driving a tractor. A tractor, it sounds vaguely tractor-like. Yeah, I feel like I'm driving a tractor. I've got my steering wheel, I've got my big bonnet, I've got that tractor truck going on. This is a railway tractor. That's basically what it is. It's not fast, but it's designed for moving heavy things relatively slowly. And for that, yeah, it's exactly what it does. They don't use this too often here on account of its slow speed. But this, for me personally, to enjoy my first drive at the Bredgar and Wormshill, this is the perfect speed because I can really just enjoy trundling around, enjoy the railway. Now, on a day when the weather is less than perfect, such as rain or snow or high winds, this cab will do absolutely nothing, and I can envision it would be extremely unpleasant being on this. In fact, I imagine it would be very unpleasant. But today, the sun's out, it's lovely autumnal weather, I am loving it. Now for going backwards, all one does, turns around, and away we go. Look at that. It really is a locomotive you can drive with one finger. And I've not really come across anything else that you could just drive with one finger before. And like my own Ruston 48, it is a matter of just setting the throttle and everything else is controlled on the gear or direction on this. Would I want to drive this every day, day in, day out? Probably not. Probably not. I imagine it would get tedious. Would I want to drive it again? Oh God, yes. If there was ever the opportunity to do a shunt on this, I would be all over it. And to be fair, that's basically what it's used for here. They use it as the shunter and the works engine, because that's exactly what it's meant to do. This is very much it does what it says on the tin loco. Absolutely spot on, does what it's meant to do. Ahead, we're approaching a 5 mile an hour limit, which is fine because we're not doing 5 mile an hour. In full drive, about half throttle, nowhere near. Absolutely nowhere near. So is there anything I don't like about this? I find it weird that the gauges are down by my feet. I find that very strange that they're all the way down there. I prefer them to be up in front of me here rather than all the way down there. But that's me really, that's a niggly fault. It's not really a fault, it's not personal preference. I'd probably like the glass in here, but as said earlier, it's not a cab, it's a protection roof, so it doesn't need it. And it's very much set up to drive in boards. This is very comfortable, twisted around, not quite as much, but I'm not holding that against it. And to be honest guys, it is a real honour to be able to drive this with only 2 of these being in the country. It's very strange today, you might have seen in the video, we've gone through several red signals. That's because the entire railway is shut today. It's just us out on the railway today. There is nobody else doing anything on the track. So we've got the whole railway at our disposal. Nothing's open. Whoop, that was sharp. So, that's the end of having a drive on this very stereotypically and just quite frankly wonderful piece of industrial equipment. It's a real rarity for me to get to drive something that's frankly this good. And sure, you could argue that this lacks some of the charm and the quirks of an older industrial engine, but it all works. It does exactly what it's meant to do, which is kind of rare for a small industrial engine. Quite often they don't do what they're meant to do at all. They kind of work with you to do something. They don't do it when you want it to do. It is without doubt the easiest engine I have ever had the pleasure to drive, and it is certainly the newest by quite some way. And frankly, it's fantastic. I would like to spend the day on this, shunting around, just having a play, bang some wagons around. That would be awesome. This thing is so controllable. It's amazing. Frankly, I've loved it. I really, really have. It's just so amazingly stereotypically industrial. Just the whole design of it, it screams actual industry. It's great. So I really, really hope you've enjoyed watching this, guys. Please like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and leave a comment. If you've got a locomotive that you'd like me to review or a part of society and you'd like us to come have a look, please get in contact with us. We'd love to come visit. And remember guys, the more you share this, the bigger we can get, and the more locomotives that I can actually get hold of and review and show you guys. So it's a big cool thing for all of us. A massive, massive thank you to Chris for inviting us down here and letting us review his loco, and to the Bredgar and Wormshill Railway as a whole. The society is brilliant here, the people are lovely, and the collection of locomotives are fantastic. If you like the railway and you like what you've seen, and you want to know when they're open and how to come and get here and where it is, there's a link to the website in the video description. Highly recommend checking it out and looking at the locomotive list, because they have just, as I said, fantastic locomotives here. They are beautiful. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen in this video, how about clicking over here somewhere for the last video I did on the narrow gauge? Or a standard gauge is more your thing, how about clicking down here for the last video I did out on the standard gauge? Thanks guys, I'll see you later.